It was just a glance, a moment I never meant to have, one of those ordinary afternoons in Pinecrest, Georgia, where time feels like it's dragging its heels. I was carrying a small basket of folded laundry toward Caleb's room, hoping the simple task might distract me from the quiet strain between me and my husband, Eric. Caleb, my 25-year-old stepson, was stretched out on the living room sofa, casually scrolling on his phone, completely unaware of the shift that was about to take place. As I passed behind the couch, something on his screen caught my eye. I didn't mean to look. It was instinctual, not intentional. But once I did, I froze. A flash of provocative images filled his screen, and a muted video began to play. My breath caught. I nearly dropped the laundry basket. Caleb noticed immediately, turning sharply, his face turning pale. With fumbling fingers, he locked his phone and sat up. "Grace," he said quickly, "I didn't mean. I'm sorry." I gave a quick, awkward nod, turned away, and headed upstairs without a word. My heart was thudding in my chest. I told myself over and over, it was nothing. He's a grown man. It was private, harmless. But that wasn't what bothered me. It wasn't the content. It was the strange, lingering silence that followed, the unease that settled between us, like fog that wouldn't lift. That evening, Eric was working late again, so Caleb and I had dinner together. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the sound of forks clinking louder than it should have been. I tried to lighten the mood. "Heard back from any jobs yet?" He shrugged, barely looking up. "Not yet." "You'll find something," I offered, stirring my soup. "Yeah, hopefully." We left it at that. Nothing more was said. The next morning, I woke up determined to put it behind us. I cleaned the house more aggressively than needed, scrubbing counters that were already spotless. Caleb entered the living room just as I was vacuuming near the couch, the same place where everything had shifted. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, not looking up. He lingered, and I could tell he wanted to say something. "About yesterday," he started. "You don't have to explain," I interrupted, switching off the vacuum. I didn't want you to think bad of me." "I don't," I said quickly. "Let's just forget it." He nodded, though his shoulders didn't relax. The tension lingered in the corners of the room for days. We tried to pretend things were normal, but the glances we exchanged told another story. A week later, Eric left town for a conference. That evening, the weather turned gloomy. I was in the kitchen making tea when Caleb walked in, quieter than usual. "Want some?" I asked, gesturing to the kettle. "Sure," he said, leaning against the counter. The soft sound of rain tapped against the windows. I poured the tea and handed him a cup. We stood there in silence before he finally said, "I don't want things to be weird between us." "They're not weird," I replied, even though we both knew that wasn't true. He gave a small smile. "They are, but I don't want them to be." "I know," I said. "It was just a moment. Let's move on." He nodded, but something had shifted again. A different kind of tension had taken root, gentler but just as complicated. That night, I found myself awake long past midnight. When I wandered downstairs, I saw the glow of the TV and Caleb curled up on the couch. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He looked over. "You either?" I shook my head and sat on the opposite side of the couch. We didn't say much, just sat with the hum of the television between us. He eventually asked, "Do you ever feel stuck?" The question surprised me. "Sometimes," I admitted. "It's like life keeps moving, but I'm not sure where I fit anymore." He turned to me, eyes thoughtful. What do you do when that happens? I try to find joy in the small things, I said. Sometimes that's all we can do. He smiled faintly and nodded. The next day passed quietly, the storm giving way to sunshine. Eric called to say he'd be home a day early. I felt relief and unease. That evening, as the sun set over the backyard, Caleb stepped into the room. Thanks, he said suddenly. For what? For not making things harder than they already are. I gave him a small smile. Your family, Caleb. That's what matters. As he turned to leave the room, I realized the moment I'd witnessed on that phone wasn't about scandal. It was about something else, something deeper, a quiet loneliness in both of us that neither of us had known how to name. But we'd named it now. Not with words, but with silence, understanding, and the promise to step forward carefully. Together, but from a distance. Let me know if you'd like a different tone, more internal monologue, or to reshape the ending.